Hello everyone, and welcome to this latest video discussion as part of the RICS Tech Partner Programme. My name is Andrew Knight and I've been with RICS for nearly 14 years now. I currently sit in the thought leadership, research and analytics part of the organisation, and my role is to look at the whole effect of AI, data and technology right across the built and natural environment. And with over 110,000 members working in the sector, working right across that property life cycle through land, planning and development, construction, brokerage, valuation, finance, building management, building surveying, it's a very broad canvas upon which AI, data and tech is having a profound impact. And indeed, from an asset perspective, our members work across all the major asset types, whether that's land itself, residential, commercial, alternative, and infrastructure. And I'm really pleased to have Dan Milligan join me today from Frame Solutions. So welcome to the discussion. And as ever, before we get into the bits and bytes and the insight you can give us, it's always great to have a bit of a kind of snapshot of your backstory and the origin story of Frame Solutions as well, Dan.
Sure. Yeah, great to see you, Andrew, as always. So yeah, my name's Dan. I'm director at Frame Solution. I'm a chartered surveyor, which is a little bit out of the ordinary for a software company. But we focus mainly on project delivery. So all of our clients are RICS, multidisciplinary consultancies, and we provide them a digital platform for project delivery.
Marvelous. Well, I know you've done a survey recently, given your critical role as sort of working in the profession in the way you've outlined, and I guess it'd be great to hear your sense of what what is the current professional landscape look like with this reference to data and tech, and what do you think are the key trends that are driving change?
Yeah, sure. So what I wanted to do today was, we've been doing a survey across, again, it's about 72 different firms. And I just want to give the members of the podcast just a sort of snapshot of and what's going on the market, so they know roughly where they sit and what's happening. So what I'll do is I'll just share my screen.
Yeah, surely.
Let me know if you can see this okay, because we've got some quite interesting results, so I can run through them. And
yeah, there we go.
Just sort of paint a picture around it. So you can see that okay, Andrew? Yeah, it's all good. Great. So yeah, we had 72 respondents, and that was from firms of many different backgrounds. So that was all the way down, Andrew, to your sort of small size firms, which is 20 staff members or less, all the way up to your sort of multinational firms. So it covers sort of a plethora of different organizations. But what I wanted to sort of touch on was the professional landscape and where we're sitting. So mainly when we talk to customers, the first thing we're going to ask is, what are the business objectives? Because I think we spoke about this before, Andrew, about not buying tech for tech's sake.
Exactly.
There has to be outcomes that you're trying to achieve with your tech. And across all of the firms that we interviewed, the top 3 business drivers were as efficiencies and process optimization. We had a visibility and consistency and standardization. Now, from a sort of vendor point, you do get sort of the other side of the curtain of what are actually these drivers, why are they coming up a lot? And I think, yourself, especially in the profession, we've got a very tight labour market at the moment, as in there's not a lot of QSs, there's not a lot of PMs and building surveyors that are chartered that you can dip in and grab more surveyors to sort of accelerate your growth. So people have been looking at other alternatives to still fuel their growth of their company, but not having to keep going back to the labour market, where we've also seen, huge price increases in regards to wages, etc. So we're seeing from that other side of the fence is, how can firms become more lean, still grow, but stop having to go into that labour market a lot? The second thing that comes up quite a lot is, again, due to the growth, a lot of firms that we speak to have all been growing. They've been putting more offices in the UK, etc. Is they used to all sit in one office. So there was one office they all used to sit in. Quality assurance was quite easy. Standardization was quite easy because you sort of had your yellow pass folders. The report was in there. Jimmy, send me that, and they check it, right? When they started going from 10 to 20 people to 80 people, all of a sudden it's hard to keep control of that when it's in a different environments. So we see a lot of people coming to us because they want to keep that standardization across the company, again, due to growth, which is good if you think about it, because it just means the market's very is very buoyant right now. So that's what we're seeing from the other side of the fence. Again, visibility kind of feeds into that consistency and standardization of that growth that these companies are seeing, where they want to see what's happening inside their consultancies and have a bit more control on that, rather than very document-based way of doing it, which is harder to get that sort of snapshot of where they're at. But in terms of a sort of professional landscape, that's what we're seeing in the market this year. And these are the three top drivers, basically, that people come to us looking to solve.
And as you say, that and it's good that you've highlighted that sort of direction of travel, which is to look at the kind of business issues before you start thinking about the tech. And you've effectively kind of seen this kind of major challenge around, and I've been with, as I mentioned in my intro, RICS for nearly 14 years, and that message about labour shortage, I think, has been a consistent one in all that time, that people struggle to find qualified, experienced people, and that seems to be not going away in that way. And I suppose there's that positive message you said about the fact that people are still growing, but that growth has to be supported with what is certainly a finite and not necessarily growing labour pool. I mean, are there some, aside from those, are there other challenges that have come out of what you're hearing and what the survey said? Because, as you say, it's labour shortage, that they want to grow, they can grow, the business is there, they're perhaps more distributed in terms of this kind of hybrid working. Have you seen some other things that are challenging people at the moment?
Yes, I mean, like the main thing is, the growth issue is most highest on most people's agendas. And like I said earlier, COVID really bumped wages up quite a lot, and it become hard to dip into the labour market to fuel that growth. So we're seeing a lot more streamlining, and I think compared to 5 years ago, Andrew, people are a lot more open to the tech side of it, of in essence replacing low value tasks and streaming those out to let the surveyors really focus on where the value is. And I think AI has a little bit of an impact into that, into regards of bringing that to people's attention. And I think across the whole tech sector, that sort of pushed it in the right direction, and people are a lot more open to visiting these softwares and looking at how they can actually fundamentally grow their business and fulfill their business objectives.
And you talked a lot about a very positive message there about growth in the firms that you've been talking to. How have they been kind of positioning themselves and developing a strategy to support that growth? Because clearly they'll be messaging and positioning themselves to their clients about how they're growing and how they're supporting that growth, and presumably how they're doing that using data and tech as well. So what's been this kind of external messaging they've been used to tell their clients that, look, they're open for business, they're growing, and that they're using data and tech to support that in a kind of responsible way?
Yes. So we've seen, again, it was sort of split at the start. I would say 4 years ago, it was quite different. So we had very large firms that were spending a lot of money in-house to develop solutions that they were pitching to their clients. We've seen the tech, we call it prop tech, but we'll say, technology in our profession has increased. So there is more off-the-shelf softwares that people can use now, which is great, because it allows you to sort of level the playing fields a lot more. So we're starting to see those rise. And in essence, when consultancies are bidding for their work, the question from clients now a lot more is, do you have a project delivery software? Do you have, a vault that I can come in and see my own manuals, etc.? So the questions are being asked, but fortunately there are solutions out there that are off the shelf that not, huge companies with massive IT teams can buy and compete on that level. So we've seen quite a big shift to that. I think that, again, on this survey, a lot of what I found, especially around people that were charging higher rates than companies that weren't, the ones that were, there was two things that I found that had in common. So the first was they had extremely strong branding. So we asked the question of roughly, as a mid-hourly rate, so just chartered surveyor or senior, how much are you charging per hour? Appreciate sometimes, it gets lost in translation on percentages, etc. But just as a baseline, right? And what we found was ones with companies with very strong brands that were giving uniquer offerings were charging a lot higher rates than ones that weren't. And that was quite clear. The brand was very important, but also how they were delivering data and how they were delivering, in essence, information to their clients, really fed into that a lot, more so than what I thought, to be honest with you. So that was pushing the hourly rates up. So we've seen that change. We've seen the procurement, the way that clients are procuring their projects been slightly different now, and we're supporting that our end as well. So, you know, we're working with our clients to make sure when they do go to the bid that they can hit this upper echelon. You know, they've got the very, very unique offerings. They've got a strong brand. They've got strong branding material on their technological advantages as well.
I think what's really for me there actually is what you've highlighted there, is that the use of technology has not kind of commoditized and driven down the value of the professional. It's actually augmented it. It said, actually, you know, the market is prepared to pay a rate per hour, per day, whatever it's measured, on somebody who's actually being augmented by the technology, and that actually there's not this sense of a race to the bottom, that technology is being seen as a way of driving down cost. It's actually seen as a way of delivering a better service, but still recognizing you need that hourly input of the human being, which I think is a very positive message as we move forward, looking at increased use of AI and other tools, where it's the augmentation story is almost stronger than not using technology. I mean, back to the technology thing, you talked, I'd like to go back to something you mentioned about kind of off the shelf. And one of the things I speak a lot about and hear a lot about is one of the challenges is the fact that actually there are lots of solutions out there, and you can end up with a dangerous situation potentially, where an organization has sourced a lot of separate tools that then don't talk to each other. There's no interoperability. What have you seen around the maturity of firms realizing that they need to build an overall set of, you know, solutions that do talk to each other, that enable this higher value that we've just discussed? Because that is the challenge, that you end up with lots of different tools that aren't connected. And I've also seen quite a lot of the very well established you know, long-time suppliers of software to the industry recognize that they need to, even if they've been around for 20 years, they need to integrate their various products into a more coherent platform. So what are you seeing about that kind of maturity of having a more coherent tech stack, to use the jargon?
Yeah, so that's a great point. And I think, again, I just want to revert back to 4 or 5 years ago, where this wasn't really on people's radars. I think we went from buying software every sort of 5 years, maybe more. You know, a lot of the, you could say, competition that we have is just Word and Excel. It's not, you know, we're not trying to knock off other softwares, where consultancies may not buy software for 5 years fundamentally, and having something in place that is repeatable to understand where you're going to go, so the endpoint is vitally important. Otherwise you get sort of wrapped up on these very, very small cycles of get that software, oh, it doesn't connect with that one, and then, oh, we need to sort of smash it together, and it becomes very messy. Whereas there needs to be a digital strategy, and it doesn't have to be, you know, 200 pages long, but where are we trying to get to business objective wise, and how can we get there, and what is that process basically, and working back off the back of that. I'm seeing more firms undertake that in a better manner. So if I get on a call, there is more structure around, this is what we're trying to achieve. This is, you know, the timelines we've got involved. And we've seen that change in the last good few years, comparative sort of, you know, you turn up on a call, what does it do? Sounds great. Or it doesn't do what we need to do. And then it's all sort of gone. So there's more proactive thinking with it. Again, I think it's filtered down from the top. So when we talk to very large firms, obviously there's going to be a chief digital officer, etc., and they've got, you know, that's their job. But I think it's sort of trickling down through other firms, and they're starting to adopt the same sort of model of, like, you know, where are we with this? We can see these huge firms doing it. We should get something in place that we can get involved with that and deliver on what we need to achieve.
Now, I'd like to go back slightly, actually, and dig a little bit deeper into that very interesting piece from the report you showed about, you know, the hourly rates and the fact that actually the the level of quality of being able to pass information across and deliver the output in a more contemporary technological way was having a really positive impact. And I suppose that leads me to this question about the overall kind of shift, if you've seen a shift in terms of what clients expect now. Because there's two sides to this coin when we talk about data and tech for the professional. We've got to be thinking about what the client expectations are and what becomes the new normal. And I wonder what you've seen in the last few years in terms of clients now simply expecting this as a basic, as just a hygiene factor, not sort of being wowed by it, but just simply saying, well, why can't you give me that in a certain format? I don't want to see your planned preventative maintenance as a PDF. I want to see some structured data as well as a document I can read. What have you seen as that shift?
Yes, so we've seen a shift in it, Andrew. I'm not going to say we've jumped the curb and everyone's, all of these clients are expecting immediate data. It's not the case. I think there's a plethora of different clients that consultancies have to serve, whether they're very old school and they do want that PDF, or they're very, very new school where they want to just go on a portal and see this information straight away. So I think sometimes, and this is just our view, you need to cater to both. We call it a three-pronged approach. So if the client wants a PDF, you can give them a PDF. If they want to be on a portal, they can be on a portal. You're there to serve their need. You're never going to strong arm the client to say, well, you don't know nothing about digital, you should be on this portal. At the end of the day, they're paying the fees, right? So you gotta bend a little bit. We are seeing a movement away from PDF. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And we're seeing a movement away from, in our market, because it's project delivery, more of a wrap up, as in a holistic view of all of their projects. So traditionally it was, give me a cost report on this project. I want to know about program, risks, etc. And they sat there, they get this cost report, and it all sits in sort of isolation. Now there's more movement is, well, I've got 20 projects I'm trying to deliver. I'm reporting all this stuff upstream to investors or whatever it may be. Can you give me a holistic view of where we are across the whole portfolio so I can, report very quickly to what's going on to the investors? And we've seen that move quite a lot. That needle's moved considerably. And that's what tech's great at, isn't it? Databases, AI, big data sets. It can do that in milliseconds, where consultancies would have to spend hours and hours and hours doing this before, where they don't have to do that now. So I think that's a huge advantage of having a good tech stack.
And one thing at a kind of specifically kind of UK level of detail and granularity, I'll be interested to hear where we are on the kind of maturity cycle of delivering the golden thread, Building Safety Act and the very sensible request that we have this kind of golden thread of digital information. And I guess from some of the conversations I have, people are still trying to get their heads around this. But where do you see that cycle and that expectation of obviously various stakeholders now having to maintain that, either receive or produce, or be both receiving and producing data that's going to support that thread?
Yeah, again, it's definitely on the upward trajectory. We're not there yet. I would definitely say that. I think that CDEs, common data environments, make this a lot easier. And when people do come to us and they want to become more streamlined, that's one of the big selling features is that you can get your own branded portal. It's already professional and everyone can feed into it. Right? Whereas a lot of people, when you speak to them, is, oh yeah, he sends me this Excel, or then we send one WeTransfer over here and a Dropbox over there, and it becomes all very fragmented. So there is definitely a drive up for that. That again, that has pushed it. The golden thread has pushed that more towards people, in essence, having to do it. But the reality is, when you get to practical completion, there's going to be a big O&M manual anyway, right? So people are starting to get into the groove of, this is how it is, and this is an easier way of doing it.
And I suppose that the market also needs to understand that they don't have to necessarily, much as it's good to do a full BIM, you don't have to BIM a project to have a common data environment, do you? You can start with that as your starter for 10 to start sharing and recording and curating that data in a good way. So that's a good thing to hear. These kind of conversations would never be complete if I didn't ask you about barriers. Well, what are you seeing? what are you seeing that's going to stop the sector adopting technology and getting value from it, and not tying itself up into knots and getting it wrong, if you get my drift?
Yes. There's a few things that feed into it, in my opinion. I think that we touched on it earlier about no standardization of buying software, because it is quite a unique event, you could say. It's quite early market for companies that are on Word and Excel. If we look at other industries, they have standard operating procedures for buying software. Now, this isn't just a business case. It's we're going to go through, we're going to ask pre-qualification questions, we're going to ask for requests for information, we're going to do security, then we're going to run test cases, etc. So there is a whole stream of things that they set up that are universal. And I think sometimes that because we don't have that, it can make it a bit of a task where we're not really sure where we're heading with it. And great marketing's great, but I think that a lot of companies may have been burnt a few times in the past where they have bought big softwares that are making you jump the cut and big long contract terms, and then they turn out they don't work as well as they should, or etc. etc. So I think having that standard process is a great way to start. We offer a free CPD of that if you want, and we've got resources all over our website of just random rough questions to ask around security and how these things, you can build a process up in your company. I think the second thing in barrier to adoption is I think security is quite up there, Andrew. I think people are a little bit afraid of this, and so they should be with AI and everything. And again, I think some of it comes down to knowledge, again, of not asking the right questions or not knowing the right questions to ask. We were talking before we got on this podcast that the RICS are going to be giving out some guidance around AI. That's music to my ears. Anything that can give people the knowledge that they need to understand how software works, GDPR compliance, how the cloud works, all of these questions need to be asked. I think is a good thing. So,
and I guess that almost leads me on to almost my final question. And as ever, there's a lot of jargon and terminology that we start using when we talk about, the built environment moving to become more, able to use technology for the benefit of both clients and the firms themselves. And obviously the phrase digital transformation comes up, and I guess a lot of people may be sort of turned off by that phrase. It sounds a bit hyperbolic, but I guess it's about understanding how perhaps our firms move from an ad hoc kind of implementation of various software tools that will fulfill a basic task to thinking, well, okay, how do we actually change our business quite strategically to be more digital and to really change in a good way the way things are done for both sides' benefit. And I guess you mentioned earlier that it doesn't need to be a huge long document, but where would you both observe and recommend how people start that journey? Because you do need a plan. As the old joke goes, if you don't know where you're going, any route will do. So it's how do people start that journey, particularly if they are an SME, they're not a large company with a huge department working on that stuff. How do you start that journey to really changing the way your organization works in a digital way?
I think, you've got to start from, and I said this earlier, you've got to start from your business need, whether that be efficiency, consistency, etc. We spoke about a few that we come across. And I think what we recommend is that you get everyone together, because efficiency, okay, that's great. What is that though? What is that? And then we need to start delving into, okay, well, what is the biggest time suck in project delivery? How can we be more efficient? What is taking the most time? You get everyone together, you start putting, stickers on the whiteboard. You can talk about it. Well, it takes me, 2 days to do a report, or, I can't find these documents, etc. And then we can start working back. But then we've got real life examples of what is an efficiency gain. Okay, so how can we take that now and solve that issue? And it may not be tech. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
This is a process of understanding your business, where the time sucks are, and how you can improve that system. Tech is very, very good at amalgamating data, putting it in a nice little wrapper, finding things, no doubt about that. But it may just be you just need to change your process in the business, and you can save hours off the back of that. So I would advise doing that in the first instance. Once you've got to that point, you've got somewhere to go then, haven't you? You've got somewhere to say, right, in project delivery, it's taken us a day to do a report. All of the QSs are spending thousands basically doing this. Is there a way that we can make that quicker? Then you go to the market. You've got a sort of list of questions. These are the things I want you to show me. You go on the demo because they always show you, right? Show me how that works, etc., etc. Right? I can see how that works. I understand it. So there's 3 things that people go through. They go through understand, believe, act. So if they understand your product works, then they need to believe it. So testimonials, stuff like that, and then they'll act off the back of it. So you can go through that process. Then you start going into security, where's the data held, etc. And then you can start saying, right, I think this could solve that issue that we decided at the start of how we were going to get more efficient. Let's put a few chips in there. We don't have to bet the barn, and see if it works. We'll test it on a few people. If it's great, we crack on. If not, we get rid of it, and then we move on with our lives. And that's how I see digital transformation. It's not we're here, we're there. It sort of goes like this. It goes in the line. You check it, you go up a little bit. Maybe it doesn't work. You come down a bit, but then you go up a little bit. It's not a just jump the cut in one go. And then you can start filling it out, and you'll get to the end of the year and say, look, this is what we achieved here. We've got an efficiency bump of 15%, which is great. We've saved this much. We're spending this much on the software. And that's how I see digital transformation, which is, again, I don't really see it as digital transformation. I see it as a business transformation with tech in.
Yeah, no, I suppose the important message, I mean, there are a number of messages there, one of which, don't boil the ocean, start off with business objectives, show the ROI, show that return on investment in doing that. And as you say, it's around business issues. And I think also the phrase that's been used to me over the years that, if you simply digitize a bad process, you get a bad digital process. So sometimes it's looking at the processes and thinking, well, actually, are those steps adding any value? Do we need to do that? Do we just doing that because we've always done it? So there is that sort of business analysis, as you describe it, first, before you then see where digitization can actually help you. So I think some important lessons there, and I think particularly for a sector that isn't necessarily high margin, where it's got to make sure that it can show some return on investment soon for an investment, because we don't want to sit around for years waiting for the ROI. This is a dynamic business, and we need to show those results. Well, for today, Dan, this has been fascinating, and thanks for your insight. And it's really good to have a conversation that's based not only on your experience, but also having talked to firms and got that sort of wider insight as well. But for today, thanks ever so much for your time. Really look forward to talking again in the future.
No worries. Thanks for having us on, Andrew. I will put the link below if anyone wants to grab the report, they can. They're more than welcome to it. But yeah, thanks for having us on, and we'll hopefully talk soon.
Indeed. Take care.
Cheers.